ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hey, Jules and Jez here. Now, Jules, you've become a bit of a TV correspondent for us lately, haven't you?
Yeah, someone's got to do it, Jez. I've been watching White Lotus, and no spoilers, but I really want to talk about why we have this obsession with watching rich people being very unpleasant and very unhappy.
You can find Not Stupid on the ABC Listen app.
We know when it comes to Donald Trump, we should expect the unexpected. But wow, what a week. Investors have been on a roller coaster, particularly the very rich ones, like one of Trump's closest allies, Elon Musk, who's now publicly calling for a tariff-free zone between the US and Europe. So, is Musk heading out of the White House? And is being tied so closely to the US president really that great? Today, Wired reporter Vittoria Elliot on what comes next for the world's richest man. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Vittoria, with the stock market all over the place this week, it's been a wild ride for America's billionaires, including, of course, Elon Musk, right?
I mean, I think everyone is hurting, but, Trump was very clear about what he wanted tariff-wise, both in his first term and this time, so I can't quite understand the surprise.
Yes, that's true. Well, apparently Elon Musk lost about $31 billion since Trump announced his tariffs on April 2. He's probably rebounded a bit since then, so made some money back. But across the year, I think his wealth has reduced by 31%. Quite a lot, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously a lot of that is because his wealth is tied up in his companies. That's his valuation based on the stock he owns in Tesla and SpaceX and things like that. I do think that he particularly is feeling this both with everyone else and then obviously with the specific stuff around Tesla.
As Musk's bromance with US President Donald Trump developed, so too has the company's image transformed in people's minds.
Elon Musk is having a shocker, people deciding to boycott this electric vehicle brand.
Slumping in Europe with a drop of about 40% across Scandinavia and 76% in Germany.
And the thing is, Vittoria, Musk has really started to go out of his way to disagree with Trump's tariffs.
I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe.
He took real issue with something that Trump's top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, had said on CNBC.
And the American people understand that Elon's a car manufacturer, but he's not a car manufacturer, he's a car assembler. The batteries come from Japan and come from China. The electronics come from Taiwan. The tires come.
So Musk hits back against that, saying that Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. So there's clearly a fair bit of tension there.
Well, I do think we're seeing this friction here, and I think, also blaming Navarro for this is a way for Musk to lobby criticism without necessarily blaming Trump. And I think anyone in Trump's orbit tends to be pretty careful about that, they try not to implicate Trump himself as having made a mistake or having done something wrong. So really taking aim at Navarro allows Musk to be critical of an action the administration has taken without necessarily being critical of Trump.
What was the response from Trump to all of this sort of stoush between these two men?
I mean, Trump has really sought to downplay any sort of schism between Musk and the tech elite, but specifically Musk and the rest of the administration. So, obviously you had Caroline Leavitt really try and sort of make this a boys will be boys thing.
No, look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue. And you guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history. And I think,
but I think if we look at sort of the tech right, Musk and his cohort, versus the traditional right, which is like the Heritage Foundation and sort of the more Steve Bannon types of OG Trump supporters, there are these frictions between them and in sort of the way they want to see the country remade. And I think the tariffs are a particular evidence of that.
All right, well, Vittoria, I really want to look now with you at, I guess, how long Elon Musk is really going to stick around in his role in the United States government, because there have been signals already, haven't there, that he might be getting ready to leave. Just tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think the first we really heard of this was there was an election in Wisconsin at the beginning of April for a seat on its Supreme Court. And the candidate that was backed by Musk, despite Musk campaigning in Wisconsin, doing his sort of $1 million giveaways that he did during the presidential election, randomly giving out money.
Congratulations. The reason for the checks is that it's really just to get attention. It's like we need to get attention.
He poured a lot of money into backing this campaign, and his candidate still lost. And so shortly after that, we sort of started seeing language from Trump saying, Musk has done a great job, but, he's got businesses to run. He can't hang around forever.
I think he's amazing, but I also think he's got a big company to run. And so at some point he's going to be going back.
And that is true. Musk is what's known as a special government employee. So there is inherently a time limit, which is around 130 days. So legally, Musk would have to exit his current role in government. Regardless, sometimes there can be extensions, or if he was appointed to a different role or something like that, there could be workarounds, but he's running against that time limit.
But is the shine wearing off, I guess, for Elon Musk, given what you've said in Wisconsin? He was handing out $1 million checks, but still he couldn't get the conservative judge elected.
Yeah, and, we could potentially see something where Musk realizes that this level of public scrutiny for involvement in government is actually maybe not great for him or for his businesses, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to really try and back away and be more quiet about it, but still have a very clear political alignment that may show up in other ways.
Yeah, all right. So as with everything, I suppose, with Donald Trump, it is a little unclear if Musk is going or he's not. But the thing is, Vittoria, he's had a massive impact on the political landscape in America, hasn't he?
Oh, totally. I mean, even if Musk were to exit at the end of May, the damage that has been done or the change that has happened in the Department of Government Efficiency is just going to have ripple effects for years and years on end, because the reality is that you're not going to necessarily be able to refund these agencies or rehire all these employees. If you even just look at USAID, there are projects now that even if they were to regain all their funding tomorrow, public health projects, people have died. People have gone without food in areas of the world where they rely on U.S. foreign aid. So I think there's just so much that can't be undone at this moment. It also really showed what could be done if you're not particularly concerned. If you have the sort of Silicon Valley move fast, break things, apologizes rather than ask permission mindset around this stuff.
Well, Vittoria, Elon Musk, he's had this huge impact on the American political landscape in a very short period of time. He's also spent a huge amount of money on shoring up Trump and making sure he was re-elected, he's lost around 30% of his wealth on the stock market since the start of the year. And by the way, Tesla, which he owns, of course, has taken a massive hit too, hasn't it? So there's a fallout for him.
Yeah, I think to him, I would guess that the most distressing thing has been the effects on Tesla. Because, you know, so much of his wealth, you know, his personal valuation as a billionaire is tied up in his shares in Tesla. And also, you know, those Tesla shares are what allowed him to get the loans necessary to purchase X. They're really a critical foundation of his wealth. So of all the things that I could see him being most concerned about, I think it would actually be that.
All right, well, Musk may or may not step away from the Trump administration soon. Overall, has it really been worth it for him? Would he have been simply better off to have stayed out of politics altogether? What's he actually got out of this?
I think it is too early to tell. I do think that now that he is involved, it will be much harder for him to step away, you know, because at this point, his name is so tied to Doge and to what has gone on here, to the ways in which Americans perceive the destruction of the federal workforce. I think at this point, it's sort of, I don't want to say a sunk cost theory because I think we're way too early in that, but the fact that he himself has become so synonymous with the Trump administration and with Doge and what it's doing in the federal government, I think it almost feels like stepping away would not necessarily save him from that, you know, that the people will still feel this clear tie, and there will people who have felt frustrated with his involvement in government are still not going to want to buy a Tesla. You know, there's all of this stuff that I think now sort of irrevocably ties him to the Trump administration. And so in that way, it feels like we could really see him double down on his involvement or his support of it because he's really in it.
Yeah. So what does that mean then, Vittoria, for his businesses, for his reputation, for his wealth? And does he care?
He already is a massive recipient of government contracts and of government money, you know? So much of what has made SpaceX possible has been government contracting and partnerships with NASA. So much of what made Tesla possible was government grants for clean energy and cars that were not running on fossil fuels. So I think that we could see a moment where he may become more reliant on those types of things to support his businesses, especially if, you know, animosity towards him from the American public and from the international public continues.
Vittoria Elliot is a reporter with Wired. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Adair Shepherd. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. ABC News Daily will be back again on Monday. Thanks for listening.